Hey guys, so this is the next section that of our practice for our part 2, and this is where I will be explaining flowcharts and the IPO chart. So for our flowchart, we're going to use the following 5 symbols. So the first one is a start-end symbol. You see it's a rectangle with rounded corners. It will appear at the start and at the end of a flowchart. Then we have this rectangle with slanted sides, so it's skewed. It's a skewed rectangle. That means input or output. That means the user is either inputting a value into the system or into the program, such as changing the message box, or changing the coffee blend, or changing the syrup. And output means the program is displaying something, putting something out, like the price. A decision is an if statement, and it will always have a yes or a no, because a decision results in a yes or no. So something must happen if the outcome is yes, and something must happen if the outcome is no. Then we have a processing symbol. This is what we do when we refer to what the program does for calculations, for example, or for setting the values of something. It is a processing that is done by the program. So that's when we calculate the VAT, the subtotal, and those things. And then we use the arrows to connect our symbols. So let's take a look at the flowchart that I drew for this example or practice that we did. So let me zoom in a bit. So sorry guys, let me scroll up a bit. So we start with our start symbol, right? Then the first thing that happens is we need to select the coffee blend, right? So we have our input output symbol, and inside we say select coffee blend. Then we have a decision symbol, because when you select a coffee blend, you can either select house blend or you can select the single origin blend. So if you selected house blend, then you follow this arrow, and then the coffee price is displayed. If you did not select house blend, then did you select single origin? If you selected single origin, then yes, the price for single origin coffee brand is displayed. If you did not, that means you did not select house blend or single origin, which was the only two options available to select from. So you go back to the start and you need to select your coffee blend, and then it asks you again, did you select house blend, up until the point where you actually have selected one of these two options. So if you have more than one option, like with the pizzas, there's going to be, I think, 4 different pizzas. So that means there has to be 4 decisions. And at the end of the very last one, it goes back to the start to say that you have to select either one of these pizzas flavors to proceed. Once you've selected a coffee price, you need to select a syrup. So again, we have 2 options for our syrup. It's either going to be caramel or strawberry. So if the user selected strawberry, yes, then we display the syrup price for strawberry syrup. If no, then check if the user selected, sorry, the first one was if the user selected caramel as the syrup, then if yes, we display the price for syrup price for caramel. If no, we need to check that the user select strawberry as the syrup price. If yes, then display the price for strawberry syrup. If no, that means the user did not select caramel or strawberry as the syrup, and these are the only 2 options for the syrup in our practice scenario, which means the user cannot continue without selecting either one of these 2, which takes them back to select syrup. So again, if you go to your pizza one, there's going to be more toppings, so you need a decision for each topping. Until none of the toppings have been selected, then it goes back to select topping. So once the caramel price has been displayed, then the user clicks on the calculate button. So we've got the input output symbol for calculate. And then a process happens. We calculate what is the subtotal, what is the VAT, and what is the amount due. Remember the code we did where we calculated the subtotal, the VAT, and the amount due. Once that has been calculated, we display the subtotal, VAT, and amount due on the user interface, right? And once that is displayed, that is where our program ends, our process ends. So that is, in a nutshell, the flowchart. So let me zoom out a bit so that you can have a full picture. This is what the flowchart would look like. All right, guys, so the last part is the IPO chart, which stands for input, processing, and output. So this is where we list our inputs, and we list our processing steps, and we list the output for each of them. So as input, we are getting coffee blend, and the processing that happens is we set the coffee blend price, and the output is the coffee blend price. Next, we have the input for syrup. We set the syrup price as the processing step, and the output is going to be the syrup price. Next, it is the subtotal. So there's no input for subtotal because we use the coffee blend price plus the syrup price. The output is our subtotal that's displayed. For VAT, there's no input because we use the value of subtotal multiplied by 0.5, and the output is VAT. Lastly, we have our amount due, which is equals to our subtotal plus our VAT, and the output is amount due. So guys, just very quickly, so you've seen how the flowchart looks and how the IPO chart looks. I'm just gonna give you an idea of how you can draw this by hand, but you can use a diagramming tool like I've used PowerPoint, and I'll show you how to use PowerPoint. I'm not going to draw the full diagram again because you have it here. I'm just going to show you how to make each shape and how to connect shapes. And then I'm going to show you how to create the table. I'm going to do this using PowerPoint. So firstly, you look for PowerPoint, you open it, you make a blank presentation, you delete your first slide. You put in a new slide, you make sure it is blank, then you click on design, and then you go to slide size here in the right corner, and you do custom slide size. First of all, we want it to be portrait, and the size of our slide, we want it to be the size of an A4 paper. Then you say ensure fit. Then over here we have our blank A4 PowerPoint slide, and then we just insert another new slide, a blank one for the IPO. So for the flowchart, you can do insert and then shapes. So the first shape you can look for flowchart. Under flowchart, you'll find this one is the start and end. So you draw it like so. Then you change the fill to white, and you change the outline to black, and you change the text to black, and you change the size to a much smaller size, like 11, and then you type inside of it. So let me make it a bit bigger than 11 so that you can see what I'm typing. Start. And remember, here at the bottom is where you can zoom in and out. So you see how big it actually is. So we can make it 11. Let's make the size 11. And then you can resize your block, move it around as you want. The next one, for example, is you put in a shape, but this one is the input output shape. So we put it in there, which is that skewed rectangle. Again, change the fill to white. change the outline to black, change the font size to 11, change the font size to font color to black, and then type what you want inside input. Next is the processing symbol, which is just a rectangle. So again, insert shape, rectangle, and put it in there. Change the fill to white, change the outline to black, change the font size to 11, and make the font black, and then start typing. So let's call this process. Then we need a decision symbol in between there. Let's put it in between this one. So let's put in a symbol for our decision, which is this diamond. So again, change the fill to white, outline to black, change the font size to 11, and then start typing. So decision. The question. So if you don't see text in it and you've typed in it, double check that you changed the text to black, text color to black. You see, I didn't change it. So then you can resize it to fit as you want. Let's position it in between here. And again, you can copy and paste certain elements so that you can reuse them instead of drawing them each time. Now for the arrows, connection arrows. So I use this one. So we do one for start to end. So if it's just going to be a straight arrow, like this one that should be here, you just go to insert shape, arrow, you select the straight one, and you do the arrow straight. Make sure it aligns. Again, you can change the outline to black. And I'm going to copy this arrow because I want to use it in my decision, for my decision symbol as well. So I'm going to put it there. I'm moving my decision symbol. Now I need a yes and a no that comes out here. So now I'm going to use this arrow. It's one with one arrow at the point and a line at the start. So let's do for this one, let's make it black, and do one for that side of the arrow. Let's make it black. Then we need the text, right? The yes, no text. So you just insert a text box and you type yes, then you change the size to 11 and you move it to position it above the appropriate arrow that comes out of your decision symbol. The same for the no. You can actually copy this, paste it, move it to that side, and change yes to no. There we've got our yes and we've got our no. Then next, I want to show you the IPO chart. So usually what I do is I say I insert a table. I know there's going to be 3 columns and I add the rows as much as I need. You can always delete rows if you're not going to use all of them. So I just add a table with 3 columns, and then I go to this table tools, table design, and I choose this one so that it removes the styling. And I select the table to change the font size. So let's make it 11. Then the first column is input. Then next one is processing. And the last one is out. Then you can bold this because that is our heading. You can even give it a shading. So if you go to table design, shading a light gray, then you know this is your heading, and then input 1, for example, will be an input process 1, and output process 2, for example, and output 2. And that is how you can create your flow chart and your IPO chart using PowerPoint. All right, thanks guys.